Okay, so this lady had did a video, and she was talking about how over, in her video, she said over, I think she said 600,000 black women has been laid off their jobs since 2025. And she was like, do you want to know the reason why? Do you want to know the reason why so many black women were laid off? And she said, and not only were they laid off, so many were laid off, but they're having a very difficult time finding a job, and the unemployment rate is a lot higher among black women. She said that because companies look at black women as more of a liability than an asset. And what she mean by that is, she said when they had the programs, like say the EEOC or DEI, when they had these programs in place, these programs kind of protected black people on the job. She said that she works in human resources. That's how she knows information. She said you wouldn't believe how many discriminatory complaints they get from black women within the company. How many lawsuits being sued. She said there's so many of them. Especially, like, she never said the name of her company where she worked. But she said it's the majority of complaints that come through for her job, working in human resources, majority of them is racial discriminatory complaints from black women. And she said, so companies is constantly getting complaints and lawsuits from attorneys and going to court being sued because of racial discrimination towards black women. And she said it's not the black men, it's the black women who go and file these complaints, who go and take action. And she said, so once they had got rid of those programs and it wasn't a minimum requirement for companies to hire black women, a lot of them decided they're not going to hire them anymore. She said that once they stopped hiring black women, the percentage of racial discriminatory complaints that they were getting had dropped drastically. And she said that's the reason why they had the large amount of layoffs. You've seen a lot of layoffs, and these women are having a difficulty time finding jobs. And believe it or not, the woman who told the story was a black woman. What you guys think about that? What do I believe? I believe what she's saying is most likely valid because people of color, believe it or not, get discriminated against a lot on jobs, especially when it comes to promotions. When you start talking to your coworkers and you find out they make a lot more money than you and you guys are doing the same role, the same position, the same task, especially when it comes to promotions, especially when it comes to leniency, when it comes to micromanaging. So her point may be valid. I can see a lot of us going to human resources and filing complaints, or going to the EEOC or DEI or whatever we need to do to try to get some fair treatment, because it has been unfair to us. And my thing is, instead of getting rid of them programs, which made it easy for employers to get rid of black women, why don't they try to fix the issue of the way black women are being treated on these jobs?
It's mainly competition. People think that they on a job, they're making money, that racial competition, prejudice, and colorism, and hierarchy, a system of favoritism don't exist. People feel like, oh, it's 2026, we shouldn't be going through this, we're not in slavery no more. But it's not physical slavery no more, right? They abolished that. They abolished physical slavery with the 13th Amendment, right? 14th Amendment was, we have rights to this land, which we already had rights to this land as black folks. That was really made for us, but it was kind of put out there for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't write it in the fine print. It was particularly for foundational black Americans, right? And then you got the 15th Amendment, stamping our right to vote on this land, which just gets us in a system. Black women on the job, they are looked at as competition. Black American women in general are looked at as competition. For one, because they produce more competition. They produce the men of America, black men of America, right? And they want to look at us as the minority, right? Because they say we only, 35, 40, sometimes 50 million black Americans on this land, right? United States of America, right? And then you have white America, non-Hispanics, say make up, 180 million, and that could be divided between European, German, Irish, what else? A plethora of other so-called white Americans, which they come from somewhere else, but colonialism got a lot of white people over here, and now they claim themselves as American, right? So ethnogenesis, right? The ethnicity changed. But they can't claim that yet because it ain't been long enough, right? But that came from colonialism, right? Trying to suppress the people of the land, because you have to have some type of slavery. You have to have some type of physical slavery, mental slavery. You need somebody to be a part of a system. Now, I'm trying not to go too deep. There has to be somebody on the lower chamber. And I'm going to go back to black women. Black women are, like I said, black women produce the black men already. That's a competition for white men, Hispanic men, any other ethnicity, right? So you have to keep the black woman at that low, because if a black woman get to a point of happiness, get to a point of freedom, and they are the hires of this land, right? The hers of this land, the hires, the hierarchy, the her arc. They get back to that throne. They would be producing more black men, and that would make the so-called white men minorities. They make the white people minorities, right? Because we would produce more, right? If we're happy more. There's a saying, they want you doing good, but not better than them. There's a saying, because that is a part of a system, right? The system is about dependency. And the black women on a job, right? It's just like bees. It's like bees, right? You go to a job, and majority of jobs are ran by men, particularly white men, right? They create all of the systems that we are in. They suppress any other ethnicity from growing and making a whole nother system. The system was never built for us, right? We had a system before anything. We had our own system, but like I said, because of colonialism, them bringing, and that's why they bring other ethnicities over here too and give them loans and housing and businesses and of a sort, and they suppress the people of the land, because you have to have somebody at the lower of the totem pole, right? It's still competition. There's still competition to this day, right? There's still indentured servitude of a matter. Unless you do a crime, you have to go to jail, and you have to be a slave, because when you're in jail, you're a slave. You know what I'm saying? So you have to have somebody on the lower totem pole, right? They give men a little bit more leeway because men are more of heavy lifter builders, and they need men to actually be healthy and build, right? And that's why they never wanted women to vote. The 19th Amendment, they never really wanted women to vote. They never really wanted women to have a say-so or anything like that, right? They want women just to stay home to be maids and caregivers, right? Which they are naturally, you know what I'm saying? They naturally are that, but they don't want them coming out of there, right? So women never build. You never ever see black women, specifically black women, have big businesses, right? They never really into the corporate world outside of just doing like office work, desk work, stuff like that, right? You never see them really in roles of leadership, management. You do have some women out there, like I said, leadership, management, but most of the time there are men controlling it. It's patriarchy. It's never matriarchy. So women deal with a lot on the job. They deal with micro aggression. They deal with harassment, right? Discrimination, tone policing, implicit bias, right? Prejudice against ethnicity, gender, social groups, racism, things of that sort, right? It's all type of things that they have against them. Stereotypes, they could be belittled, the archetypes, and, just by the little things that can aggravate a human being, right? It can aggravate a spirit in somebody, right? It could be all types of things against them, right? Just because of differences. And playing a role like a boss or something like that, that's the sort of, like I say, controlling and policing, right? Maintaining an environment that is fit for them, right? And we all know women, like I say, women, this is like black women specifically, United States of America, that's their land. That's like, and I traveled a lot of places, bro. That's just like anywhere else in the world, right? It's only allowed in America because, United States of America, because we have this thing called the First Amendment, right? The freedom of speech. And a lot of ethnicities come here because of the 14th Amendment. The black Americans, after slavery being abolished, right? The Civil War that we fought and died for in this land, a lot of our ancestors, right? That we never reaped the benefits of, but other ethnicities come over here and reap all the benefits from and look at us like we nothing, right? Because they forgot never taught the history and was hidden that the black women are the ones that deserve the most respect on this land. Just like any other land. You don't go to China. You don't go to Russia. You don't go to Dominican Republic. You don't go to Colombia. You don't go to Europe. You don't go to Canada. You don't go to Brazil. You don't go to Dubai. You don't go to Middle East, Africa. You don't go nowhere and disrespect them women. Right? That group of people, women, right? You don't go nowhere and disrespect their culture in general. But a lot of people, because of that First Amendment right, it comes over here and disrespect our women because, we do it. It has become a trend for us to even disrespect our own women because who controls the media? Who controls the narrative? Who controls the music, the sound, the vibration, the frequency of what's on that TV screen and what's on the media and sends a signal of the trend, of the vibration that tells us, oh, F the women, F black women, F this women, treat them like this, pimp them out, do this, do that, you know what I'm saying, treat them bad, they ain't good for nothing, you know what I'm saying, and the women start to really accept it as well. Now you got women putting it in the music, disrespecting themselves. We got to the point where it's men disrespecting, not women disrespecting themselves because there's one thing we call money. Money is the root. The love of money is the root of all, right? The root of all evil, right? Our lower desires, materialism, attachments, capitalism, excessive craving. That's the word. Excessive cravings, right? So we use it as a meter, so now we go work for the next man to live desires, right? Lower wants and needs, the stuff we don't even need. And I'll say this, now, things are starting to change now. This is a new world being built, right? It's a new system being put into place because they have dropped the DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Which they allowed them to start firing some black women from the workplace. Now everything is starting to separate now because it was too much diversity, right? And it was a lot of favoritism being taken apart. And that's why, like she said, a lot of black women were starting to sue because discrimination and them being prejudiced, right? And a lot of black women are leaving these big corporations and starting their own business, which they are able to survive on their own land because there are enough black women to start helping each other out, right? Coming together, building their own communities. And a lot of small black businesses are starting to prosper, right? Because there's no just one way of doing anything anymore because technology is increasing, right? That's why AI and all this other stuff is coming about, right? But the thing is, they don't want people going outside of the dependency, right? They want you still to depend on the system. But like I said, the system was never, any system is not really built for people to come up, right? That's why people they be on a job site and it's like after a while raises stop, they fire people. Like right now, they starting to fire more people now in the job place right now. People can't find jobs because the pyramid scheme, the Ponzi scheme has ended. People have reached a plateau where it's like, we can't pay you anymore because we pay you anymore. We're going to depend on you. And that's what a system is. A system doesn't want to depend on you all the way. They want you to depend on them. They want you to need them. And the system has come to that point where they have to start over. And now it's just like a video game, right? Sometimes when you change certain things around the video game to improve it, you have to change everything in it, right? Because the laws of nature, now you're saying people are starting to beat the game. So now you have to change the game around. That's what they're doing with all these ethnicities, kicking people out of the country. That's why they got rid of, like I say, the DEI and all this stuff, because the rules are starting to change because the game is changing. Technology, just like with the Industrial Revolution came about. When we had refrigerators got better, laundry got better, the way you wash dishes got better, dishwashers, just the improvement on machines, robots, technology with phones and everything in today's society and world. People are no longer dependent on certain things in this world, but there are jobs that are going to be needed to be created now. Right? Now it's more of physical, now it's more of spiritual, emotional. People start to lose those things when robots and all these things come about, right? Because they start depending on technology. They start depending on where you get your information from a machine instead of human interaction. You get what I'm saying? So now people have to become smarter. They don't want you to become smarter. They want you to become smart just enough to work in the system. They don't want you to become smart, but you have to, like I said, you have to raise the vibration or the thought process of the society to work the system you want them to work. That causes us to be intelligent. We are going to be the first intelligent beings of the system because we've seen both sides. Now, for future's sake, the future, our children may or may not get enslaved depending on what we teach them today. If we don't teach them about the system today, they get lost in the South and they start to forget where they come from. Just like how we forgot in slavery and our children was enslaved to a system that they was born into that was already here before they got here, right? They was born into a system of control of things already running, and the system didn't teach them. School, like I say, school teaches you what to think. It don't teach you how to think. Because they teach you how to think, that means you can manipulate the system. They don't want it. They want you to think the world and everything in it is linear. They don't want you to think the world is built in curves, because now you are more open-minded. When you become more open-minded, you start to see things from a different perspective, and you start to create a world of your own. You no longer depend on a system that was already built for you to survive in, right? Not even live your best life in, just to get enough to survive, right? Because like I said, us as humans, we always strive to want more, right? So that's why I say these jobs, they was never built for us.